Whatever
Broadcast is live.
All right.
Does it show where, like if we have viewers, does it show where that is?
None yet. We might as well wait for there to be some. All right. One viewer.
Awesome. Welcome.
Two viewers.
All right, Billy, what have you got for us today?
Well, I was just going to give it a second. 3 viewers. Let's wait.
Sean's sharing it on Flagship.
Perfect. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks for joining, guys. So Cheryl and I, if you're anything like us, we have been cooking a lot while in quarantine and watching a lot of our musician friends do, live broadcasts on Facebook Live, as well as Instagram. And so we thought, wouldn't it be fun if we did some cooking with some of our friends? And the first people we thought of were Jordan and Shawn Fisher from Flagship Romance. So please welcome from Truth or Consequences,
New Mexico,
Shawn and Jordan.
Hello! Thanks for having us. This is going to be so fun.
We think so too. I mean, this is a first for all of us, so we'll see how everything goes, and we're just going to have some fun with it. Hopefully everybody learns something new, and I think we might be able to squeeze in a little bit of music today.
Yes. Maybe.
Most definitely.
So when I called you guys and suggested, that we do exactly what we're doing right now, Jordan, you immediately had a plan. You're like, what we should do is just cook right out of the pantry, whatever is in the pantry. Yes. So we decided to kind of cook around what you had in mind. So why don't you tell everybody what you decided to cook today?
Sure. So one of my favorite things to cook is curry. And I've loved curry my whole life, and I love that it's so versatile. And like Bill was talking about, pantry items are so important, especially right now. This is actually a perfect example today, because I came up with this recipe last week, and I had kale, and I had a lot of red onions, and I had bone broth, and I had cilantro. And today I have no kale, I have spinach. And I have a little bit of red onion, so I'm using the sweet onion for the majority of it. And I don't have any bone broth, so I'm using my Better Than bouillon, which I always have in my fridge. And I don't have any cilantro, sadly, so I'm going to use some fresh parsley. So, it's like you can just kind of, as long as you have a couple of the essential ingredients, you really can kind of just improvise. And we're going to show you how you can do that.
Great.
Perfect.
That's exactly what we were hoping to accomplish today.
So as soon as Cheryl and I heard curry, the first thing that I thought of is there is a soup that I make, which is coconut. It's a Thai coconut chicken soup. We first had this soup at a restaurant in Charleston called Basil.
One of our favorite places.
It comes for 2, and it comes with like a flame underneath it. But it's really the intensity of the flavor of the soup, more so than the presentation of it. But the presentation is fun. Yeah. I never got the recipe directly from the restaurant, but we came home and kind of deconstructed it and tried to figure it out on our own. And that's what we're going to make today. So we're going to make, or at least that's what I'm going to make today, is to go along with your curry, is a kind of an entree soup, Thai coconut soup. And then
can you send it this way?
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah, we need that for sure. Taste-o-vision.
And then Cheryl and Jordan decided to go with the curry, which can have a little bit of heat to it, some sort of cooling salad. So what did you come up with?
Well, what I came up with is, many times we'll have Old English cucumbers or the small pickling cucumbers in our fridge all the time. We keep a lot of veggies as much as possible. And so I thought a really cooling cucumber salad. It does have Greek yogurt and sour cream in it, but I'm sure there's plenty of ways that we could take that either vegan or take that dairy-free, you know, as you go along. And what we ended up with after a couple of trial and errors, actually the sauce that the cucumbers sit in became the dressing. So we made a full-fledged salad and actually set it on some lettuce. So you continued with that more cooling, watery type of crispness that you would get from a regular green salad, only with the cooling of the cooling properties of the dressing and the cucumbers. Now it does have a little bit of spice. We had to do some sort of garnish. So you'll see the idea that we came up with for that.
Awesome.
All right,
Sounds
so
delicious.
why don't I get started
Yep.
on the ingredients, pulling together the ingredients. If you want to flip the
Yep.
camera around. So I've got most of them here. We are going to send out the recipe, you know, after the show today. All 3 recipes of what we're making. Now I realize I don't have everything because I left some stuff in the fridge. So follow me to the fridge.
You get a tour of our kitchen. It's
So-
fairly clean in there.
So we obviously need chicken. I realized I don't have the cilantro. So grab some cilantro. We keep cilantro not in a plastic bag because we learned that recipe the hard way. Which is I do have plastic on top of the chicken, so I didn't put the cilantro on the chicken. But we've got some fresh cilantro here. We keep it in a paper towel in the fridge, just slightly moist if possible. So anyways, what goes into this Thai coconut soup is obviously coconut. So I just have canned coconut. Happens to be organic, but it doesn't have to be organic, from the local Harris Teeter. What really makes this soup stand out is the combination of the coconut and the lime. So I squeeze some limes into there. So I went to a French Culinary Institute. And so my technique that I'm going to show you today is a combination of 2 things. One is the traditional French style of making soup, which always starts with carrots and onions and celery. I don't have carrots today because I don't want to color the soup. I want it to be white and bright as much as possible. So I left the carrots out, but I do have Vidalia onion. I have my celery, lemongrass in Thai food always. So I've got lemongrass. I'm not going to chop that up real small because I'm going to leave it big so we can pull it out later. So we get the flavor of it. Ginger, some garlic.
You're missing your broth. I'll get that.
Oh yeah, coconut. I mean not coconut. Chicken stock.
We try to make vegetable stock and chicken stock as often as possible.
I'll go get it.
Okay. So it's not difficult to do. It literally takes you half an hour, and you know, 1 roasted chicken, just the backbone alone will net you about 8 cups of broth, and it freezes beautifully, and it's extremely lean and clear. So you can see, we always date. We always show how much volume's in there. So it's easy when you're pulling something out for a recipe to know which one's going to work best for you.
Yeah, so Friday night we made fried chicken,
Yes.
and we had chicken bones. So don't throw those bones out. Make some chicken stock.
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
Yes,
Just never salt it.
I'll throw
Never.
it back to you guys while I go ahead and prep the ginger and all the stuff that's going to go into here.
Great.
All right.
Take it away, Flagship.
Cool. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys are having a good what is today? I don't even know what today is. Sunday.
Sunday.
All right. Let me put it on the romance and Flagship. Here we go.
So we are
Hello,
going
Chef.
to make We are going to make a pantry curry, and so if Shawn, if you want to show them, we have so this is the chicken broth that I had to make out of the Better Than bouillon, which I do want to show you because I always have this, and you can get it in vegetable. There's a mushroom one that's delicious. This is the chicken. This in the refrigerator is always good in a pinch if you don't have any bones and you haven't made any stock, which I'm very sad we don't have today. So that's the broth, and then we have tomatoes. These are canned tomatoes, and I always have whole peeled canned tomatoes just in case, because typically, unless it's like a caprese salad or something, you can use them in any recipe that calls for tomatoes. So we have some parsley. We have, this is this spice right here. It's Madras curry powder. And so I have that with some turmeric, a bay leaf, some kosher salt. We have some tomato paste, ginger. This is coconut sugar. You can also use brown sugar, light brown sugar in this recipe. Some minced garlic, some mushrooms, and then we have some garnish. So when all of this is done, well, we'll talk about the garnish. So I'm going to chop this onion, and we are going to start with the onion, the garlic, the ginger, and I do have to give a little shout out to our friend Ashay, who lives here in New Mexico. This is one of his beautiful pieces of art that also is the best knife ever. Ashay and hammer. He's only 20 years old. Can you believe that? So we're gonna do this, and we always keep our onion skins for stock, just like Cheryl and Bill were talking about with the chicken bones. Keep all of our bones, all of our skins. So here we go. I'm gonna just throw that aside.
And for everybody watching, we're going to be posting the recipes after this is all said and done. So you can just enjoy. Honestly, I suck at this part. I cannot chop worth a darn.
So you just go almost to the end, and then, sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. And you go almost to the bottom. You go horizontal, then you go vertical.
Anybody crying?
Thankfully, this is a kind onion because I didn't want my mascara to go everywhere. And then here we go. So
it's great to understand knife skills. So thank you, Jordan, for doing this. And by the way, we're going to have to order one of those knives.
Right? Isn't it beautiful? So the end part is difficult. So I'm just going to leave that over the side because we don't need it. And we're going to do that one more time. So
one quick note, Jordan and Shawn mentioned, we can see your comments. I'm not necessarily right in front of them. One of the things we talked about in planning this was, please submit questions you have, culinary questions about what you're seeing here, questions about recipes you might want to make and you're not quite sure about, substitutions, whatever you can think about, put those in there, because we're actually going to do a quick review, and the four of us are going to do kind of a Q&A follow-up. And as they said, we are also going to share the recipes out.
Yes. And I'm very excited. This week, I actually, well, I guess it's last week now since it's Sunday, I released a blog. I launched a blog called The Hungry Songbird. And I've never cut an onion on camera, so I feel like I'm like the worst onion cutting of all time. But
no, it looks good. Looks cut.
So yes, I launched this blog called The Hungry Songbird, and it's going to cover recipes and food that we eat when we're allowed to travel again, and interior design and a whole bunch of stuff. So after this, it's going to be posted on there as well. And this recipe and Cheryl and Bill's recipes will be on that blog. So I'd love it if you want to check it out. So we're going to heat some ghee, which this is another thing I didn't have quite enough of. We love cooking with ghee. It adds so much flavor. It's a high heat cooking oil, but I'm almost out. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of ghee, 1 tablespoon of rice bran oil. You can use.
And bran oil is also a high heat oil as well, right?
It has a 490-degree smoke point.
That's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So
yep, gonna get some of that too.
And we're at my parents' house. We've been sheltering in place with them for over a month now, and so it's been really fun cooking in this big kitchen. All right, so that's heating over medium. When that's hot, about 2 minutes, we're gonna add this onion, and gonna stir that a bit. Then we're gonna add some garlic and ginger. Let that get a little softened before we start adding the spices, the tomato. So we're letting that heat. Cheryl and Bill, what are you guys up to right now?
All right.
So I've gone ahead and prepped the onion. So I have half a Vidalia onion. I have 2 cloves of garlic. I've got, I guess, about 2 inches of ginger, and I chopped it, not super fine because when you eat this soup and you kind of bite into the fresh ginger, it's just a great experience. So, and then celery. So if we kind of come over here, I put a teaspoon of olive oil into the pan, just a regular saucepan, and get a nice sizzle. So what we're doing now is we call it sweating the onions. So sweating the onions and the celery and so on. So why do we do that? We're taking some of the moisture out of the onions and the celery and so on, and we're intensifying the flavor. We want to get some flavor out of that. Could you take everything that's here, put it in a pot, and cook this soup in 10 minutes? Absolutely. Will it taste good? Absolutely. But why do we go through the process of kind of sweating the onions and layering the flavors? Because what we want to do is get that experience when you go to a restaurant and you have a soup and you're like, oh my God, that is the best soup I've ever had. Maybe that's the difference between 10 minutes and 20 minutes and just taking the steps to boost up the flavor and get as much flavor as you can out of the soup as possible. So,
well, one of the things Jordan is really going to be building in her dish are these layers, and she's going to go into more depth as we go along today. But to Billy's point, that's what we're doing. You extract some flavor, then you add more, and you extract that, and they begin to develop a nice harmony. And so that's always what you want to think about. What am I putting with something, and how is that going to overall affect the final flavor of a dish?
Absolutely.
yeah. So once you get this down and really the onions just barely start to see a little bit of color on the outside. We're not caramelizing the onions by any means, but I would normally let it go a little bit longer. And then what we're going to do is, now this is more on the French side. I've got some white wine. It's an okay Chardonnay. It's not super expensive, but you don't want to use cheap, super cheap wine because you don't want to cook with wine that you wouldn't drink with. And so now what I'm going to do is deglaze the pan with some white wine. Again, just a little bit more flavor. Can you leave the white wine out? Absolutely. Can you leave the onions and garlic out? I have a brother. He might be watching. My brother Jerry, and outside of Seattle, hates onions and garlic. I love onions and garlic. But can you leave those things out? Absolutely. Okay, so assume that we've been sweating the onions for about 5 minutes. And now we're going to add a little bit of white wine, and we're going to let that simmer until the wine reduces by about half. So, back to you, Jordan.
All right. That sounds delicious. So I am sweating my onions and some garlic and ginger. I actually grated the ginger. This is one of the tools that I cannot live without in the kitchen, the microplane. I love it for grating garlic into dressings, ginger, zest. You should zest every single piece of fruit you have and keep that zest because it is so good and it's a waste to throw it away. So that's that. But now we're going to, these are getting a little softened. So now we're going to add the tomatoes. And then we're going to add the spices. So
Bring it on.
And these spices, we're going to put some links to some of our favorite curry spices in the recipe after this. But I mean, you really can, again, improvise. I'm doing more of an Indian flair with the Madras curry spices, but you can do, I mean, Cheryl and Bill are doing, the Thai soup. You can do Thai spices and leave out this tomato and the tomato paste and do this exact same recipe.
Take a whiff of that.
Yeah.
Can you smell that?
So we're just going to stir this in. And I'd like to say thank you to my friend Sazi for getting us these spices for, I think it was Christmas.
She's watching.
Oh, thank you, Sazi. So this is just all going to, I'm going to mix it up. I'm just going to combine All the flavors are gonna melt together. It's gonna get super yummy.
So this is really going to act as your base for everything else that's going in, right?
Yes, it's the base. This, these flavors are just gonna get yummier and yummier. And we have like there's a method that I love so much. I read it in a Bon Appetit recipe years ago where they used a beer. And I use it. I use this method all the time, and sometimes I use wine, depending on the dish. But we are going to add some beer to this in a little bit, and
we're gonna get this curry drunk.
So we had to get our local TRC brewing company Crowler of the Foch Street wheat beer and non-bitter beer. The best when we do this.
We made this same recipe last week, and Jordan used a stout, which is delicious. It's an amazing stout.
It was all I had.
It was all she had, and the curry was like it sucked all the moisture out of your mouth. It was just just so bitter.
Don't use an IPA. Don't use a hoppy beer. That's what we're trying to say.
Like a Belgian or a wheat. Yeah.
So, adding a little tomato paste in here. Just get it all combined.
That color is amazing, Jordan.
The color?
Yes.
It smells good too. I wish we could have that smell-o-vision. All right, so that's all combined. And now I'm just going to measure out 8 ounces of this beer, and then we're gonna drink some because you should. But that's part of this recipe. Now, if you're not into alcohol, you can absolutely use a non-alcoholic beer for this. I highly suggest this method though, because it brings out so much flavor. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add it, and then it's gonna reduce. So I'm just measuring out 8 ounces, and then we're gonna drink some beer. So Cheryl and Bill, you can take it from here if you'd like.
All right, folks, we've been monitoring. Anybody have any questions? I know we're going to provide you stuff after. We get it. But if you have any questions, maybe is there anybody with an allergy to a typical kind of spice that you'd find in these type of dishes that maybe Jordan can make some recommendations for alternatives, that kind of thing? If not, we'll get to them after.
All right. So this beer is in there and it smells so good. All right, so that's just gonna simmer on medium for about 5 minutes till it reduces a bit.
Yeah.
Awesome. You ready for Billy to go the next step?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, here we go.
All right, so go ahead and take a look at. We can see that our wine has really reduced. Again, we're just trying to intensify the taste of the flavor of that wine. So white wine, once we reduce it, is going to be sour. And so I like when, if you're using vinegar, using 2 different kinds of vinegar, champagne vinegar mixed with a red wine vinegar. In this case, we've got the sourness of the white wine reduced. We're going to add some lime to it. But we can go ahead now and add our chicken stock.
I want them to see the stock, how clear that was. It just came out beautifully. And the only thing that was added to the bones was water, a half of an onion with no skin on it, 1 stalk of celery, and 1 carrot. So not a lot of color came through. It keeps it really nice for other recipes as well.
The one thing I'll say about making stock is you don't put salt in your stock. You can always salt later. If your stock is too salty, then you can't take it out. So when you're making bone broth or stock, there's no need to put salt in there. Pepper's good. You can put pepper in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we've added our stock. We've added our coconut milk. I'm going to go ahead and add, I've got 2 limes, and I'm going to use this type of device to go ahead and squeeze our limes into this soup.
There's just something incredibly wonderful about that lime flavor in this soup. It's a bit addicting. So this is our favorite juicer. And if you'll notice, At
It's
one
been
point,
repaired a couple
at
times.
one point, we lost the nut and bolt. So Billy improvised, and she works just fine.
Okay, so one of the great things about cooking with coconut milk as opposed to cow's milk, regular milk, is you can bring it up to a boil. If we were using cow's milk, you bring it up to a boil, it separates. So we're going to go ahead now and bring this up to a boil. I'm also going to go ahead and add our lemongrass. I've kept it big like this because I want to take it out later, as opposed to just chopping it up real fine, which is another option. But you might have noticed that I kind of crushed it
With the back of the knife?
Yeah, exactly, with the back of the knife to kind of release as much flavor as possible. All right, so we're good for now. We're going to wait for that to come up to a boil, and I'll send it back to you guys.
All right. So
We are in Simmerville right
we
now.
are. Smells so good. So we're gonna let it simmer just for a couple more minutes, and then we'll be adding unsweetened coconut milk. I agree with Bill. I love cooking with coconut milk. I cook with it all the time. We are making some rice to serve this over, and we just used water and a little pinch of salt. But one thing that I love to do with rice, especially when I'm cooking something that doesn't, like the topping or the side doesn't have coconut milk in it, I like to use coconut milk as my liquid to cook my rice in and make coconut rice. Or coconut cream is really good too. So let's see.
Jasmine rice that you're using.
This is jasmine rice.
Okay.
Yes. That basmati rice is also a fantastic rice to have with this kind of curry. We usually use jasmine. We're jasmine lovers. So, and a little tip that we learned from a friend of ours in Jacksonville. She owns a Thai restaurant there, Pad Thai, and I've grown up in that restaurant. I mean, you know, when we lived there, I was going there twice a week from the time I was 7. And she said, don't ever rinse your jasmine rice. She said, just add a little bit extra water, and that starchiness is amazing. So that's what we do. That's our little trick. So let's see, we're getting there. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I'd say we probably need to do maybe just a couple more minutes because this isn't really reducing quite to my liking.
Now, how can you tell when it is reduced enough?
Okay, well, I like it when it's still going to look moist. Obviously, we're not going to cook all the moisture out of it, but I just don't want it to be so
Watery?
Yeah, so there's just a little bit longer. And when you move this, you see how the liquid's going in there. When it's going in a lot slower than that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I am not
No.
a trained chef.
It's like when
by
you're
any
cooking.
means.
It's like when you're cooking scrambled eggs. In a way.
Yeah.
You cool it.
Right. So we're just gonna. It's getting there though. It is. It's really getting there. So, and so once we add the broth and the coconut milk, that's going to simmer for about 12-ish minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. Get all those flavors combined, and then we're going to be adding chickpeas because I wanted this to be vegetarian. Besides the fish sauce we're using and the ghee and the broth, this could be completely vegan. So we'll have all the vegan options. You can also you can add meat. If you have like leftover rotisserie chicken or something like that, that's always good for a day after curry. So yeah, and we're getting there. This is looking good. This is looking really good.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
For those of you just tuning in, we are Flagship Romance. This is the Hungry Songbird right here, and we're with our friends Fork, Mike, Knife. And if you dig in what you're watching, share it with your fellow foodie. Share it with your fellow food lover.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Do we have a couple of minutes for Bill to go through the chicken?
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so I've got a whole breast of chicken here. First of all, I'm going to put the chicken on my cutting board, but it's obviously the last thing I'm going to put in the cutting board. So we've already prepared everything else. The mushrooms, which I didn't talk about before because they were still in the fridge. I've sliced those as thin as I can possibly slice them They're going to go in at the very last minute, maybe for literally the last 60 seconds to cook. They're almost raw, but they're just a little bit cooked. So that's ready to go. I have nothing else that I need to chop. So now I'm going to put my chicken on the cutting board. And for this much soup, which is enough soup for 4 people, the recipe, I'm going to use just about half of this chicken breast. So I'm going to put the other half behind you, Cheryl. Okay. And this, I'm going to just slice, again, as thin as possible. In the restaurant, cheating-wise, one of the things that they do is they freeze it, and then they slice it on a meat slicer so that it's super thin. But these are, I think, plenty thin.
And they end up being bite-sized. So, you know, typically with soup, everything's so small, but this gives you just a nice piece, you know, in that soup spoon that feels more like a meal than just a soup.
Okay. Last couple. All right. If you want to come around.
Yep.
We're now boiling. So I'm going to go ahead and just add our chicken. And it is going to cook in the soup. So there we are. Now I'm going to go wash my hands.
And take the cutting board with you. All right, Jordan, back to you.
All right. So I just added the can of coconut milk. And I'm going to add this broth. We're going to stir it all in there. Get it all nice and combined. Stir it up. And
songbird, stir it up.
I love the way it looks right before it's all incorporated. So pretty. We love food. It was so exciting when Bill and Cheryl asked us to do this with them. We're just, it was the first time we've ever done anything like this, live cooking. I had some butterflies.
You did have some butterflies
I
this
did.
morning.
I was like, oh my gosh.
You were up at what, like 6?
Yeah, I got up early. But no, it's just, food is so important. It brings people together in such a way. It teaches us so much about the world, makes us happy, and it's just fun. So this is all combined. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit, so like medium high. Let it come up to a very strong simmer, and then I'm going to reduce it down to like, I'd say medium low, and let it simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes. So that's what we're doing. And you guys can take it, Bill and Cheryl, if you want.
Absolutely. We're
right.
getting kind of close here, aren't we?
So, where am I? Hold on.
I wish you could smell this. I really
Smells
do.
amazing. So because the chicken is so thin, I'm trying to grab one. It cooks super fast. So that is definitely cooked all the way through. It's nice and white. The onions are now cooked. What I love about this soup is it's nice and white. I am going to change the color just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just using, a Chinese chili garlic sauce. And I'm going to put in about a teaspoon because we want a little bit of heat. All right.
And this is optional. This is the way we like to do it, but certainly optional. Basil does not do it in that fashion because it does change the color a little bit more towards that pinkish kind of color. Gives a little more depth though, and we really like the spice it brings.
All right, we're down to the last minute, so I've got my mushrooms that we talked about. Go ahead and drop those in. Amy Hackett asked what kind of mushrooms. They're just button mushrooms. All right, we're down to about our last minute here, and we'll go ahead and plate it up. Wait for that to come back up to a boil. Let me talk about, hold on to it, bowls. So these are our plates.
We only have a few.
That's, I mean, traditional soup bowl. For this dish, I'm not a fan of that one. Chowder soup bowl. Obviously, it would work just fine, but that's not the one I chose. So for this soup, what I like is this, kind of square dish.
It literally makes it taste better, right, Billy?
It literally makes it taste better. All right.
All right, this is going to be dish number 1.
So I want to get down there. I want to get some mushrooms. I want to get.
Did you take the
lemongrass?
Yeah, and
It's
you're just
still
going to leave
there.
it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still in the thing, but I'm not going to put it into the dish. Make sure I get some chicken. There we go.
And then you're going to make it even prettier.
And then fresh cilantro. There we go.
Ta-da!
Dish number 1.
All right, back to you guys. Or do we need to think about?
Well, ask them.
You guys let us know when you want us to bring in that little extra element.
Oh, right. Well, we are, let's see, we're going to, we have about 8 minutes while this is simmering. So now's probably a great time.
All right, well, let's do a little segue, guys. Take a break, grab a drink, and give a listen.
So when we introduced Shawn and Jordan, besides Jordan's blog, they also are Flagship Romance, which I'm assuming the 39 people online know that. So let's hear a little bit Flagship Romance.
Once upon another time, I believe the world was kind. Now I wish I might have the strength to feel and not to fight. But these days, it feels like love is running me ragged. It feels like love is running me ragged.
All right.
Was that the whole video?
No, I think we just sent a snippet.
There you go. Well, maybe we'll have another little extra thing towards the end of today's show.
Thanks.
And
guys.
thanks, Jen Bowman, for telling us you could hear the music.
Oh, good. So I'm, let's see, let me flip this around a bit. And I am
I stopped
simmering
our
over
video
here.
for a second because what are they looking at? We're not doing anything. I mean, I could just leave it on the stationary.
All right. So my dad wants a Negroni.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess Shawn is going to make a Negroni, and we could have him teach the Negroni making technique, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have about 6 minutes left until.
This is a very quick recipe. Yeah, you can just.
Okay, so let me flip it.
Hello, boys and girls. Hello, all you cool cats and kittens out
Oh
there.
gosh.
What? I said that before Carol said that. So we're gonna make a Negroni. Stanley Tucci was just on CNN because he made Negroni on Instagram Live, and it's one of our favorite cocktails as well. Super simple. It's usually equal parts gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. Make sure you have a really good sweet vermouth.
Mucho importante.
It makes all the difference. But Stanley Tucci did it a different way, and I tried it out, and it is incredible. He served it up, which we're not going to do right now, but he did 2 parts gin, 1 part Campari, 1 part sweet vermouth. So, give me 1 second. Let me grab a ice cube.
So, Carpano Antica. This is the sweet vermouth that we love, and it is so worth the splurge. Campari is a very bitter liqueur that it's definitely something that most people don't like the first time they try it. And then we're using Hendrick's. Actually, my dad doesn't like Hendrick's.
Oh,
Yeah, we like Hendrick's. Yeah, so Sean's gonna get my dad a different. Yeah, theater. Okay, cool.
So, if you don't like bitter,
Yeah, if you don't like bitter, then you definitely don't want to have this cocktail. Oh, but yeah, okay, you're gonna show that.
So, instead of this super bitter, you could use this. It's a little bit sweeter. I actually like this just kind of on the rocks with a little squeeze of
It's
orange
still bitter.
and lemon. It's still bitter, yeah. But I'm gonna use this today. I'm gonna be a purist today. So, got your glass. Oh my gosh! Hang on, here we go. Got your measuring cup. All right, here we go, my friends. All right, we got 2 parts gin, so I'll do 2 ounces gin, just make it easy. Because
That's 2.5. Oh,
Wait,
wow.
that's 2. Here we go. Gin, done. Campari, the bitter stuff. Jordan's dad says that this drink tastes like the rafters of an old church being built in the roof of your mouth. So,
Sounds delicious, right?
accidentally
We
poured
love
2
it, though.
ounces. So I'm just gonna do 1 ounce. 1 ounce. Sure. Pour this back in here. Don't tell Bob.
It'll be fine.
All right. Sweet vermouth. Carpano Antica. The best. The best. All right, here we go. 1 ounce. All right. We'll grab our stir. Very high-tech operation we have here. Chopstick. Here we go.
Always use the
I love
chopstick.
it.
Now, the only other thing you need to add to this is some orange. So, grab this knife, cut this right up. This has already been cleaned, so make sure you clean it. Right.
And you can either do the slice of orange or you can.
do just the zest of orange.
Yes.
But for the sake of time, we'll just do a little bit of squeeze that on top. And what I like to do is I like to rub the side of the glass, get that little orange kind of aroma as you're taking a sip.
Bam.
And there you go. I'm gonna take it to Bob and back to you.
Right. So
I love it.
we're still simmering over here. So what are you guys doing, Cheryl?
Hi.
Hi.
Well, we're going to go ahead and throw a little cucumber salad at you. I went ahead and just kind of started prepping. These are the old English cucumbers that I was talking about. They really do have less seeds. You're going to still find seeds in there, but they come out quite easily. And one of the things that I like to do for this salad is just kind of take that core bit of seed out of there. And one of the easiest ways to do that, you may or may not have a melon baller, but if you do, it does make this job just a little bit easier. I've tried using a spoon before. I'm evidently not coordinated enough to do that. But this, you just drag it right down the center and you take out the majority of those. You may have noticed Billy doing this. We try to keep a little trash bowl around because it's just an easy way without having to mess up or keep a lot of trash while you're working on your workstation in your way. So the easiest way to slice cucumber, obviously, just continue with knife skills, is if you can just kind of rock it back and forth. That's great, and you just follow, the width that you prefer. For this salad, I really like visual kind of differences. So I do like to do these on an angle. So you'll see I've kind of made a little point there. And I like to use my fingers as a guideline. And you can see the shape that they come out in. It's just really nice. It's different and it looks good, especially with something this simple. I mean, it's basically a sauce, a garnish, and it's on top of lettuce. So these are about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch. You know, this is part of the meal that is kind of either the beginning or the side, depending on how you're serving it and what you're serving it with. Today, this is something that I could see Jordan plating her curry with the rice and then having this by its side. As we talked about, that cooling element gives you that little bit of yogurt and sour cream coolness to it. So I'm just going to finish this one up, and then we'll talk about just assembling the sauce and a couple of other preps that I need to do vegetable-wise. I'll snack on those later. All right. We'll push those to the side. This dish also has lemongrass. I do like to loosen it up a bit, and I kind of found that I really enjoy taking that outer coating off. It can be a little woody, and even though I'm actually going to use a burr mixer to kind of solidify everything together, I still like the idea of taking that rough stuff off. So I like to just kind of break it up a little bit, and then I'm actually going to slice it and then chop it into smaller pieces, because with the burr mixer, it's going to help smooth everything out. And we don't really want to land with a bunch of this in your mouth when you're eating it. Can you see how fine that is? You can see they get pretty small. And again, the tip of this knife normally has contact, as you can see. It really doesn't, I'm not lifting and chopping. I'm just kind of rocking it back and forth. Gives you a little more control and hopefully helps prevent you from cutting yourself. How's the simmering coming along while I'm doing this, Jordan?
It's good. I think we're ready to add the chickpeas and not the spinach, just the chickpeas and the mushrooms.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Well, I am done with the
Do you want us to go ahead and talk about that? Or?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that. I just got a little bit of ginger, and then I'll come back to me for the chili pepper.
Perfect. Great. So we are using chickpeas in this curry. This is going to be our protein. And like I said before, you can use meat, you can use tofu, you can use whatever kind of protein you'd like. You can use chickpeas and meat or tofu. Something about chickpeas that's really cool, you can actually reserve the liquid from the can. It's called aquafaba, and it keeps in the fridge for about a week. And you can use it as a substitute for egg whites. You can make vegan whipped cream out of it. It's pretty amazing. So keep that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's amazing.
So we're going to stir in these chickpeas. And we're also going to stir in the mushrooms. These are just white mushrooms sliced. Shawn always has to taste test.
Those are pretty good.
Shawn's like the ultimate taste tester and sous chef. I have to be careful about which things I ask him to chop, because sometimes we end up with less than I expected. But yeah, so we're just stirring this back in, and this is actually going to simmer for 20-25 minutes until it has kind of reduced and the flavors are all combined. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to make some yogurt drizzle in the meantime. So maybe after Cheryl does her chili pepper, we can come back and do that.
Great. We talked about microplanes earlier. Our household actually has 2 of them, just in case. This recipe, it's really great if you just do the entire lime from a zesting perspective, because that's going to get stirred in after we get done blending it. Just as a side note, make sure you do the zesting before you cut it to juice it. I have done that before, and then very sad that I didn't have zest available. It's not easy to zest it once it's
doable, but a lot harder
oh, it's not
once
fun.
you cut it in half.
All right, so you can see that one lime really is going to give us a punch of flavor. So very excited about that. And I'm just going to push that to the side. And then I'm going to throw this juice into my ginger and my lemongrass. And it's just a half of the line that I'm going to do today. I did modify some of the ingredient amounts just to make it easier for today's show. It calls for a tablespoon of honey. We did fried chicken night on Friday, and we literally made hot honey to go on top of it, which is really just your favorite honey. We like to use organic honeys or raw honeys, and you just add red chili pepper flakes and just let it sit overnight before using it. So I'm going to use a tablespoon of that as well. It does give it a little heat. I know we keep talking about cooling, but the yogurt and the sour cream mixture that I'm going to put in really does help with that. But you want flavor, and cucumbers don't carry a lot of flavor on their own, so dressing them up really helps. So what I have in this bowl is a blend of Greek yogurt and sour cream. They both are very creamy. One is a little thinner than the other, and it just gives you a nice dynamic between the two. Both have a bit of sourness to them, but they only bring their own little flavor profiles. And again, it's all about layering. So we're going to put that in. And then I have a little bit of the organic coconut milk. That's going to go in as well. And that's how you can see this sauce that you're going to put these cucumbers in can be a dressing. And that's another reason why we do add a little bit of flavor as we go along. All right, I'm going to give this a quick stir. And then I'm going to go to that chili pepper really quick, Jordan. And then we'll burr mix this off camera so it doesn't break your ears. All right. So this is a half of a little chili pepper. I do not like to put the seeds in it. I prefer not to, especially with this recipe. The easiest way is just to kind of butterfly it out a little bit. Just run the tip of your knife down that vein and out they come. You're not scraping anything off of there. I had noodled on actually charring it, adding a little bit of a charcoal flavor by getting the outside dark and taking that skin off. I opted not to do it today because this is kind of the proper way to do this recipe. But as you can see, you may have elements that you want to bring to the table whenever you're doing recipes that people have shared with you. So don't be afraid to try something new. All righty, and I'm just going to give these a little chop. All right, I'm going to put all of this in the bowl, and I'm going to burr mix it a little bit. And a burr mixer is really just a handheld blender. It's just, I prefer using it, especially when you have small amounts like this. Sometimes when you're doing small sauces or small quantities, you don't feel like you get that blended quality well enough, and you're constantly having to go in and scrape it down. This just kind of amplifies that a little bit, makes it faster. Jordan, back to you.
Your knife skills are legit.
Yes.
Love it.
An immersion blender is on my high on my list of things that I want, because it just makes so much sense, like you're saying, for a smaller amount to blend it all together. So, all right, this is an optional topping that we are going to make for the curry, but it is delicious. Shawn and I try to stay away from dairy. It's not very good. It's actually horrible for the vocal cords, but we cheat a little sometimes. And this is a cup of Greek yogurt, full fat, and then we are going to do 2 tablespoons of water. So 1, 2, and then just a generous pinch of salt. We like to use kosher salt. And this is going to be all, let's see, do I have let me use a fork. Here we go. So just gonna mix it up, and it turns into just a really, really yummy drizzle for the top of this curry. And it's kind of, we're not doing any chili peppers. Ooh, this is a little too high. We're not using any chili peppers because my mom isn't a big fan of spicy. Shawn and I are to a fault obsessed with hot and spicy. So normally I would be putting some chili peppers in here, or at least some, I don't think I have it out here, but some hatch chili. I get the dried hatch chili and then grind it up, and I keep it in a jar so that we always have it for sprinkling. But so if you have it spicy, this is also really great for cooling, kind of like Cheryl's salad. But the salt and the water just, it makes it kind of a tangy. You see the consistency. Well, actually, I might do just a tiny bit more water because I want it to be a drizzle. I want it to have a little bit of body, but I want it to be a drizzle. So yeah, so we're gonna leave that to the side, and once this is done simmering, we are going to be adding in, well, actually 5 minutes before it's done simmering, we're gonna add in some spinach. Like I said, I originally had this recipe with kale, and we didn't have any kale today, so we're just gonna add the spinach in, let it get all yummy in there, and then we will be adding in just some extra flavoring. So I'm gonna be using fish sauce. I'll tell you about it after. Let's go back to Bill and Cheryl.
Oh, I got the mixer out. Why don't you tell me about it?
Oh, the mixer. Sorry.
Why don't you tell them about your apron?
Oh,
The story behind your apron, because you don't really bust it out. Your parents actually ironed it right before we started.
Like I wear this on special occasions. So we talked about Forget, Saskatchewan yesterday in our live stream when we were singing, and Forget is this tiny town of, I'm trying to think of how many people. Like I think they have like 38 people in their
Maybe
town.
more than that now.
Maybe more now. But the first time we went there were even less people, and we just fell in love with this town. The whole feel there, it's all artists and musicians, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and they host live music there. So we toured through, we fell in love, we went back. Second time we were there, we played at the venue that's there, and it was it's called the Happy Nun. You can see right here, and the Happy Nun Cafe, and they have touring musicians from all over North America that come through Forget. And so we were there, and the owner of the Happy Nun, who had just taken it over, her name was Katie, and Katie was 27, I believe.
Yeah, she's around my age, yeah.
Yeah, and just the most phenomenal chef. I mean, unbelievable chef, and such a kind human. And so we ended up spending the next day, after we played our show, we ended up spending the next day off there to spend time with the people that we love in that town. And Katie made a brunch, and the brunch was to die for. And I was floored by the flavors that were coming out of this small town in Saskatchewan. And we started talking to her about food, really bonded over food. And she gave me this apron. And it was an upcycled vintage apron that she had put the logo on. And so we ended up having a bonfire that afternoon that lasted into the wee hours of the morning. And just, we were so changed by that experience. And we ended up writing a song about it. And it was months later, Katie was in a car accident, and she passed away. And so every time I talk about it, I can't get through it. But we were just so devastated, and the town was so devastated, and it has really gotten us even more of a bond with that town. And now our friend Gayla has taken over the Happy Nun, and she is doing an incredible job there, just killing it. And we went back this last summer, got to play there again, and our lyrics for our song Forget SK are on the walls of that restaurant. So it's a very special place, and this is a very special apron. So thanks for asking.
All right, I see that the mixer has been put away.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So we're down to like the final few steps of this, and as you can see, it's a very simple dish. One of the things I wanted to point out, you can actually see a little bit of that red pepper that we put in there. You can see the lime zest. And I obviously could have added a second cucumber, but for today's purposes, I just went ahead and did a single one so you could see the steps yourself. Leave this in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. You really want that sauce to cool down. You want to keep your vegetables chilled. But when you're ready to plate, and we're not going to go through that because I kept everything chilled until making it, are the garnishes. We grow two kinds of mint, just regular spearmint, and we grow chocolate mint. Both are equally tasty, but for this purpose, I'm using the regular spearmint, and I wish you could smell it. It smells wonderful. So that is going to be one garnish. I'm going to show you how to julienne. You probably have seen this 1,000 times on other shows or YouTube channels. The other garnish that I have, let me get my clean spoon. They are chopped peanuts. And all they've been doing is sitting in a bit of spicy oil and salt. And we typically will make our own spicy oil, but I finished it off already this week. So I just was using one that we have on hand. Again, those red chili pepper flakes, for anybody that cooks a lot of Italian, those things come in handy. You can do this at home. Whatever type of oil you prefer, whether you're using it to make dressings or you're using it in cooking or as a finishing oil, I'm going to tell you those things right there can just make your day. So this is going to be the garnish. To julienne the mint, as you can see, they're all laid out flat, and you just roll them up like a little cigar, and then you're going to use your knife skills. And again, that rocking action, you just want to make them as thin as possible. Take your time, folks. I know we see people on Top Chef and all these other places just, chopping and dicing and just going as fast as they can. Unnecessary. Enjoy the time you spend in the kitchen. Enjoy what you're making with the ingredients you have. So to plate, let me grab, I need a slotted spoon. Simply put, and you can do, if this is for a single serving, you can do a broader amount of lettuce, any kind of lettuce. This is a nice organic red lettuce that we really enjoy. Mom got us turned on to this. But you basically are just plating those, and then you can add an additional amount of your your sauce. That becomes the dressing to your salad. And guess what? When you're done with the cucumbers, whatever's left over, put it in a mason jar, put it in a Tupperware container, and use it for salad dressing. Add a little bit of roasted garlic to it, maybe. Add some other flavors or herbs that you really like. Turn it into a ranch dressing. It can be pretty versatile. The last thing we're going to do is add a little bit of those spicy nuts. And for those of you that may not be able to do nuts, think about other herbs outside of the mint that you might like on this as well. And a little bit of the mint. There you go. That is your cucumber salad.
That looks so good.
That looks delicious.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What a beautiful presentation, too.
Thank you.
I love
Back to you guys.
This is so fun.
And take it away.
All right, so where are we at?
All right. Well, I think, we are doing pretty well.
Got a nice little film on top.
I think I needed to turn it up just a tiny, tiny little bit. But yeah, so we're about to add the spinach. And then that's going to cook for about 4 minutes. And then we'll be adding in some of the flavor. So additional flavor. So like I said, I have the coconut sugar, which you can use light brown sugar for this. Also fish sauce. If you don't want to use fish sauce, you can just use salt. We like the umami that fish sauce brings. And this is our favorite fish sauce, Red Boat. You can get it at your local Asian market. You can get it on Amazon, but it is delicious. It's a little bit more mild than like what is that one called? Like Thai Kitchen.
Yeah.
And it has a much more pleasant aroma. When I first started cooking with fish sauce, I made the mistake. It was the first time I ever made curry. I made the mistake of smelling the fish sauce before I put it in. And I couldn't even eat the curry because all I could smell was the fish sauce. So this is a really good one if you're not really that into it. And you can use a little less. I'm using a tablespoon of fish sauce and a tablespoon of the coconut sugar. But you can definitely use less or more depending on your taste. So
I definitely use more.
yeah, Shawn always has like the bottle of fish sauce at the table because he likes funky stuff. So all right, I think we're going to go ahead and stir in the spinach. This is not how I did this recipe before. Because I was using the kale, but this is going to be fine. I probably should have done this in batches, but I did not.
Do it all at once.
Yeah, it's
Let's
a little
just-
bit harder not to spill it out of the pan when you don't do it in batches.
It's a
Guys,
spinach party.
I'm too excited. All right, so we're gonna
Ooh,
just
got a little curry on your phone.
well, we're just gonna fold this in, and
For anybody watching,
we'll take
comment
this.
with your favorite curry. Do you like a
Yeah.
yellow curry? Do you like a green curry? Do you like a massaman curry?
Do you like a Singapore curry? So Shawn knows that I am obsessed with. Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and take this bay leaf out because once this spinach in here, it's going to be harder to find, and it's not very pleasant to bite down on a bay leaf once you're done. So, okay. So yes, our friends Sam and Anthony were in Montreal, Canada, and they brought me back the most incredible gift. It was this variety of spices by this company called Epiciste or Spice Trekkers. They go by both because Epiciste is their French name. And so they're all whole spices. It's a husband and wife that travel the world together. They meet the most incredible spice merchants, and then they gather them all from the world, and they make these incredible blends out of them. And they have just the plain spices as well. So anyway, Sam and Anthony bring me back these spices, and I loved them so much, but they were all sample sizes. So I was using them so sparingly. And then for Christmas, I opened up my stocking, and Shawn had gotten me the big ones. And this one was the matcha. I didn't use this today because it's a whole spice. You have to grind it. It's so good. But they have a whole bunch of different curries, and their curries not Japanese.
Sri Lankan?
Sri Lankan black curry, amazing. The Singapore curry is phenomenal. And some of them are super spicy.
Jamaican.
So, yeah, the Jamaican one has tons of habanero in it. So good. Today I'm using the one Sazi gave me because I love Sazi and it's delicious. So here we go. So here's the spinach in here. It's all incorporated in just a couple minutes. I'm going to be adding the fish sauce and the coconut sugar. And then we're going to taste it to make sure it has enough balance, make sure it doesn't need a little bit more fish sauce, a little bit more salt, a little bit more sugar. And then it's going to be done. It's going to be ready to be put on rice and put the garnishes on and the drizzle, and we're going to eat it.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Be sure to do it to taste.
Yes.
Because it's your food.
It's your food.
You should make it the way that you like.
Yes.
All right.
That looks beautiful.
I heard someone say yellow curry. Yellow curry is amazing, especially with some potatoes in it. Oh my, yeah, Thai yellow. Oh my gosh.
My
It
brother.
looks amazing, guys.
Thank you very much.
It's I love all the, you guys were talking about the colors, and it just makes such a difference even when you're at home. I think that some people don't think about the presentation of their food when they're at home, when they're cooking. They only, kind of splurge or allow themselves to enjoy food in that way when they're out at a restaurant. And I think it's so important to make every night a special night. Even if you don't have expensive ingredients, this is a pantry curry. You can make a beautiful dish at home. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we started doing, it's fun to make your food look pretty, especially when we do rice or different dishes that you can really portion to look a certain way on a plate. We have different sizes of ice cream scoops.
Yes.
And, it just really gives you a nice portion, a nice basis, and then you can build whatever it is you're putting on top of it in a fashion that looks really appealing to the eye.
The other thing that we do when we're entertaining is we eat in courses as opposed to family style. So we will sit down and have a soup and then take a 10-minute break before we bring out whatever the next course is. And there's no really need to rush things. And it makes it easier to get, the next dish right. Especially if you're cooking meat or something and you want it to be medium rare.
Yeah.
It's hard to do when you've got everything going at once. So break it up into smaller pieces and take your time.
The other part of it is, and I want to know if you guys agree, but it is not hard to do what we just did. It's been just a little bit over an hour. So thank you for those of you that are still watching. But in a little over an hour, you have a salad, you have a curry and rice, as well as a soup. So don't be afraid to just jump in and take one or two at a time if that's what you're more comfortable with. But do it from scratch and do it with people sitting in the kitchen with you.
Yes, that is so true. I mean, Jordan, when you first started cooking, I mean, how daunting was it when you first started?
Oh, I would never cook without a recipe. And you know, it was my manager. I was in a rock band at the time, and my manager owned a restaurant, and he gave me the courage to he said, it's okay if you mess up. You know, what's going to happen? Just make something, just experiment a little, use your gut. Like what flavors do you like? And so I just started experimenting, and it became so much fun. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with using a recipe. Absolutely, just like go for it. And if you don't know how to do something, we have YouTube. You know, it's awesome. Like, I don't know. How do you Julienne, some mint? Boom, go to YouTube, and it's so much fun. It's such a good thing to have in your little tool belt.
Yeah, I will. Billy and I will both say, and you probably will agree, is to have a good thermometer in your kitchen. The reason being, between pork and chicken, experiment. Feel free to do whatever, but there are certain things that you need to have at a certain temperature before you serve it.
Yes. Definitely. So I'm going to taste this now and see if it needs anything. I mean, I think that's
No way.
I think that's it.
You nailed it?
I think maybe.
You nailed it.
I think maybe.
Hang on.
Nailed it.
It
All
does
right.
have a little bit of heat.
Taste this with me.
because
Taste this with me.
Because of the matcha powder. No.
Okay, that's really good. That's really good. It's good as is.
Yay.
Whoa!
All right, so we're going to go ahead and plate this baby. So something that I love to do to make it pretty is put my rice in a large ramekin like this, or in just like, a small bowl, and kind of pat it down.
Great
This.
idea.
And then, look, I need this still. You can go like this
Ta-da.
and make a little
Perfect.
mountain.
Like a little rice mountain.
Yes, and so there's that. And then what we're gonna do is serve the curry. There's my ladle. Here we go.
We're on the plate.
We're
Yeah,
gonna serve
great.
the curry in this
That looks
bowl.
That looks hearty.
Yes, lots of protein, lots of flavor. So we're going to top it with this little drizzle. I probably should have used a spoon, but it's okay. I have a fork in here. So it's kind of a little drizzle of this yogurt sauce. And then we're going to do some red onion and a little bit of parsley, because I don't have any cilantro and I'm very sad about it. I was having cilantro envy when I was looking at the sales dish. Okay, and then, these are roasted coconut chips. You can get them at Trader Joe's. They're a lot cheaper than the Dang brand, which are delicious, that you can get at like Whole Foods. But I love these, and I use them all the time. They add that little crunch, kind of like the peanuts in Cheryl's salad. And then
Those are unsweetened, right, Jordan?
yes, they're unsweetened.
Yeah.
They're just roasted coconut chips.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then I'm gonna put this on the plate, do a little lime slice, and there we go.
That is amazing.
Show that.
Absolutely
Nice
amazing.
with an elongated plate, but we
Now
don't
look,
Oh,
there's your,
side.
there's your
Yeah.
whole
There's your
meal.
meal.
They're all a happy family.
Oh, somebody may have taken a taste while we were off camera.
There's a spoon in it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, guys, go ahead, Jordan.
No, you go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say thanks so much for, joining us today. This was a blast, even though you're probably 2,000 miles away.
Something like
We
that.
got
Like
a-
a solid 24 hours away. Yeah.
We
How
got a
cool
chance
is it?
to.
It took a pandemic for us to know that we could do this together.
Exactly.
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 The only downside is I can't taste that curry, so
I
now
know.
we're going to have to make it ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that,
And
that'll
we'll
be
have to
next.
make your soup and salad too.
Absolutely. And
All right.
we cannot thank people that have tuned in enough for supporting all of us in this first endeavor. We're going to look forward to doing more, hopefully, and we'll get the recipes out. If you've asked any questions, we'll get those answers out to you as well. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Let's head out with
Yes.
some more
We're going to
some
head
more
out.
music by Flagship Romance.
Yep. Stand by. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
We trade our lives for living, declare our lives forgiven, but we're all just shooting in the dark. Yeah, and we all got time for waiting, always anticipating.